I actually made it on time, but I was having connection issues. So sorry, we're getting started a couple of minutes late. Um, if you're new, my name is Tracy Matson. I'm a certified professional dog trainer and behavior consultant and family dog mediator. And I live in Utah. And I am here to answer all of your dog training questions. So if this is your first time, please, when you get on the chat, even if you don't have questions, give me your name and either state or country. Hey, Willow. Um, just so I can enter you into the drawing for tonight. Cool. I'm glad that we have. So we're trying this different days and times each week, just so that more people can join. So we're a little bit later. Oh, Karen, you forced yourself to stay awake. I actually did too because, in all honesty, I'm usually um, headed to bed right about now. Um, Ryan, hi, and Erica. Okay, so I'm going to be writing names down just for the drawing, and then I'll get to answering questions. And Erica, where are you from? So unfortunately, you have to be in the um, U.S. to win. Oh, Brian and Renee are here. I love it. I was really worried that I was going to lose um, all my regulars doing it like this late. Okay, so I need to go back and Brian. So Brian and Renee have won the drawing the past couple of weeks, and nobody can blame me or accuse me of rigging it. For one, I've never met you guys. Um, but if you watch these, you can see that I actually have my dog. I won't do it tonight because I have the bowl here, and I'm having to do it on like different post-it notes because I'm not in my office. But I usually have Jade pick the name out of the bowl. So, Sally, welcome. And Sally, where are you from? Okay, while we're getting started, I'm going to go turn my fan on just because it's hot. I mean, Brian can probably relate. He lives in Montana, and I live up in the mountains in Utah where we get tons of snow and it's cold, but I'm always hot. So, oh, Maine, nice. So I have my ceiling fan going now. Well, welcome everybody. Oh, so Renee, is that on your for your free bag of treats? Because I will note. Hi, Kathy. Kathy's staying up late too. This is not. It shouldn't be late for me, but it is. I go between 7:30 and 8, but I just lay there and put on and watch a movie until I fall asleep. Snow and cold here in Montana right now. Yeah, I could live in Montana because I love mountains and um, I actually like snow and cold more than heat. So I would do better in Montana than say like southern Utah where it's hot. And Montana's beautiful. Um, so Renee, I will check on that. I'm gonna make myself a note, and I'll email Natalie. So how how many times have you guys won that you haven't received an acknowledgement for. Because I always email them like right after the live just so I don't forget. So let me know like how many they owe you, um, and also if you want to oh, 3 times, okay. If you want to email me as well with your question, or just forward the email to me that you sent them, and I will forward it right to Natalie and make sure that she gets it. So you can do that. Oh, I said Ray. You might win. We do the. I said Brian. Um, I will do the drawing about. It depends on how long we go. If there's no more like questions, then I do it. We usually end up going like an hour to 90 minutes. But at some point, like I'll do a drawing, and then if people have more questions, then I'll stand and ask or answer them. So, okay. So before we get started, they wanted me to do a training tip. So I'm going to do one of those. And then I'll start answering questions. So my training tip today is going to be on using a marker. And the reason that I chose this is because I was with a client yesterday who was using it all wrong. And I get that there's a learning curve, and I'm sure when I was learning how to use a marker, I was terrible at it. But so what a marker does is it marks a behavior of the dog that what they did when they heard the marker is why they're getting the reward. And the reason that I don't use because some people say, well, why can't I just use good boy or good girl? I mean, but technically that's a reinforcer. That's something that it's like if you say, oh, good job, then that's like a reinforcer for something. Like that tells a child like, oh, I did something good. I like getting praised, so I'm going to keep trying and doing more. So good boy, good girl is a reinforcer instead of a marker. So I use a clicker, but I also use a verbal marker, yes, because I don't always have a clicker. And one thing that can happen is if people use yes, then they'll say it like multiple times. So they'll say, yes, treat. Oh, yes, good job. Yes, you did so good. And I'm like, okay, well, you just said your marker word 3 times. So theoretically, you should treat your dog 3 times, and your dog really didn't do anything specifically to get a marker. So I have had a few people change their verbal marker to yip instead of yes, or some people say click if you don't want to use a clicker. But think about the marker as being like a camera. So right when you hit the shutter button and you're capturing something, that's what the marker is. So if I say my dog's name, right when the dog looks to acknowledge their name, that's when I click. And then I follow within 2 seconds with a treat so that the dog makes the association that they hear the click and then the treat. So it's basically you give the cue, the dog does the behavior, you mark that behavior with your click or your yes, and then you use a reinforcer. And the reinforcer can be treats, ball, praise, affection, a go sniff, like a go say hi. So it's a and when the reinforcer kind of makes it so that the dog will repeat that behavior because they got rewarded for it. Does that make sense? So that's why I like to use a clicker, because then I'm less likely to repeat the marker, and it's a sound that really lets the dog know that, oh, I heard the sound, that means a treat should be coming. So I'm very pro clicker. I love using the clicker. If I'm just like out with one of my dogs and I don't have the clicker, then I'll use yes. So that is your training tip for tonight. If you have any questions on the clicker, and I will answer that. When I'm doing like a specific training session with my dog, then like let's say I'm going to do my 10-minute training session and I'm going to work on something specific, I always get out my clicker. If my dog does something really outstanding and I want to mark it, then I'll use yes, and then treat if I have it, or I'll just pet them and praise them and tell them what an awesome dog they are, and all of that works. So hopefully, so what happened yesterday? Just as I'm going through, I'm making sure that I remember to get everybody's name down. Hang on a second. My fan like cools things down really quick, so now it's perfect. Um, so yesterday, I noticed that the people were marking and treating for nothing. So basically, when the dog was like not even doing anything, they were marking and treating. So they thought that they had to mark before giving the dog a treat, but the dog really didn't do anything to mark. Does that make sense? So we kind of had to do some remedial, go back and do some more beginning training, mainly for the owners, to teach them like what the marker was, which was probably my bad in the beginning for not explaining it well enough. But I do send out like handouts that I assume people read, but I guess not everybody reads them. So we had to do some specific things. Also, you don't want to use a clicker as an attention getter. So they were doing that as well. Um, they would say their dog's name and then click, but it's like, okay, but your dog didn't acknowledge his name. So you're basically clicking and marking for your dog ignoring you. But they said, well, but I'm getting ready to give him a treat. Okay, but why are you giving him a treat? Because he's off doing his own thing and he's not paying attention to you. So you don't want to mark that and you don't want to reward that because your dog's ignoring you. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, Willow, I've been having my dogs be on a feeding schedule. They are doing good as of right currently today. Awesome. Good. I am so pro feeding schedule. And for those of you guys that are new tonight, I also do board and train. And because I have 4 dogs and 3 of them, well, they're all pretty much on the same diet now because my little foster dog turned 1. But usually I do board and train with puppies and they're on puppy food. So I can't free feed. And I wouldn't free feed anyway, but especially when dogs come to stay at my house, I don't free feed because if I left food out, it would be gone. Between my 4 dogs, they would eat it. So when I get dogs that come into my house that are used to being free fed, they kind of turn their nose up at their food because they're in a house now with 4 dogs and they just want to play. And so I give them 15 minutes to eat and then I pick up their food. And it takes sometimes a day and a half to 2 days for the dogs to learn, okay, I have this amount of time to eat. And if I don't eat, he's going to take my food away and I'm not going to get it until dinner. Now, during the day, they have a chance to earn some kibble during training. So they are eating, but they just don't get like the whole bowl of food. Also, I feel like it helps with potty training. It gets the dogs on a schedule. It's kind of funny. I'll be working and lose track of time. My dogs know when it's 4 o'clock, and I feed at 4 just so they have time to eat and go potty and everything before we go to bed, since I go to bed early. Um, So it just puts them on a schedule, but now they're so in tune with it, like they'll start coming up and wagging their tail and walking around and getting excited. And I'm like, what are you guys excited about? And they're like, Mom, look at the clock. And I'm like, oh, of course, it's 4 o'clock. They tell me when it's time to eat. So, okay. So Sally, you're in Maine. I've never been to Maine, but isn't it cold up there? Um, I'm I've never been the farthest I've been up in that area is Rhode Island. That's as far as I've been. And that was only for like a day. So I don't really know what the weather is like up there. But yeah, I love, if I had my choice of being hot or cold, I would rather be cold because I can always put on like more layers. Okay, Monica, South Carolina. Monica's been here before. Let me just write your name down. Okay. Oh, Kathy, you're in St. George. So during the winter, during our winter, St. George is southern Utah, for those of you that don't know, and it's actually um, really nice weather right now. And they don't get a ton of snow, but during the summer, it is over 100 degrees, and it is so hot. Summer before, and it's like way too hot. But we have a lot of what we call snowbirds up here. So older people that live up here in the summer, they go down to St. George in the winter to escape the snow. So, so yes, Brian, if this is your first Pupford live stream, I'll announce, like you'll know when I do the drawing. I like I said, I wait till more people get on so that it's fair, and I usually wait like an hour and then I'll do a drawing. Okay, Willow, I'm figuring out that sometimes she doesn't want a specific treat for that day. I have multiple different treats. I have some with a ton of moisture, some from Milkbone, both these treats. I don't know what those are, corn treats and pepper treats. And yeah, some dogs can be kind of picky. So um, I have 4 pit bull mixes, one actual pit bull, three mixes, and I swear they'll eat anything. They do not care. Um, but yeah, some dogs, and I actually have a dog that comes to one of my service dog classes, and she will not take treats during class. It doesn't matter what I use. I usually have Pupford salmon or rabbit, and she will not eat it. I have a dog in my puppy class that also will not take treats because she's just like so excited and distracted by all the other dogs. And they brought popcorn on Monday, popcorn, because that's the dog's favorite thing, and she wouldn't take popcorn. So sometimes if you're, I mean, dogs can be picky, or depending on how distracted they are, or what else is in the environment, sometimes it's just not as rewarding for them to work for treats as like the environment. So yeah, that can happen. And I try and have like 2 different kinds of treats. So I'll use like let's say I'll use peppered beef liver as my regular treat, but then I'll have some salmon as well. Um, and this is just for my dogs because I know that for my dogs, like salmon would be an A+ treat because they don't ever get like fish type stuff. So I have both. So if they do something like a recall or a leave it that I think is really hard, or an emergency recall, then I'm going to give them a higher value and be like, oh, that was so good. And then give them a higher value reward. So I do try to have a few different types of treats with me just because of the different things that I might be doing. And I have a whole, I buy in bulk from Pupford because I can easily go through one whole bag of training treats a day with all of my clients, and teaching classes at night, and people forget treats, so I let them use some of mine. But I could easily go through a bag a day. So I try to keep different flavors in my cart just in case a dog like doesn't like rabbit or doesn't like beef liver, or if they're allergic to chicken, then I can't use chicken. So um, okay, Brian, I might have made a mistake by saying what's that, and Peyton just goes nuts barking and running around. Huh. Don't know how this happened. She is so protective. Um, yeah, sometimes that can be a verbal cue. Like if you say, "What's that?" and the dog knows that usually that precedes there's something out there, um, then they can start barking. So, to give you a good example, I was working with a client. They've got two herding breeds, Australian Shepherds, um, that bark, and especially at the door. So we were trying to teach them a different response. And I have a full size stuffed dog, so I put that out in front by a tree, and we were trying to get the dogs to just look at it, so we could teach um, like a different behavior. Like when you see something outside, instead of barking, I want you to turn and go to your mat, or turn and come to me for a treat, or whatever it is that you decide to train. And because I'm a novelty when I'm there, and the dogs always know that I have treats, we couldn't get the dogs to look out the front door. They were like focused on me. So their owner would say, "What's that?" Or like, "Oh, look, there's a dog." And usually that means to the dog, like, "Oh, they know what that means." It's like, "Oh, there's something out there, so I'm going to look." So you can, if you start saying that, then to your dog that means, "Oh, there must be something out there that I need to um, alert about." What you could do is, if you say "What's that?" and Peyton goes nuts and barking, you could stop saying that so that it's no longer a cue for Peyton. Um, Sometimes I'll say, like, if I'm doing the specific engage disengage, I'll say, like, "Look at the dog." So I'll say that instead, like, "Look at that, look at the dog," and kind of put it on cue. But I only say that if there's a specific trigger that I want the dog to look at. So you could try to change your cue instead of saying "What's that?" Or you could have it so that that's just not reinforcing. If you say "What's that?" and Peyton starts running around barking, um, just have it not be reinforcing. It's like, "Well, there's nothing there, so I don't know like what you're barking at." And then you could like redirect and have Peyton, like, come and sit in front of you and get a treat, or go to a mat, lay down and get a treat. So that doing something other than barking. I also like to use a positive interrupter, or like uh, they call it release from duty. So I allow my dogs to once to alert me that something's going on, and then I'll say, "Okay, thanks guys, I got it." And so it's like, "Okay, you did your job. Now I've got it from here. You don't need to bark." And then I will have them go do something else. So I might say, like, "Go to your crate," or "Go to your mat," or something like that. So I just kind of thank them for doing their job, letting me know something's going on, and then I let them know that I've got it from here. So you might try that as well. Okay, Lexi. Hi, Lex. Lex, I want to say that you've been on here before because your name is familiar, but I don't remember where you're going to um, retain it better. And like if I take somebody's dog and I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna train. I want to take, like, to say we're gonna do it down, and somebody can't get their dog to do it down, and I'm gonna shape it. Then I might use a clicker, even if the owner's like, I don't want to use a clicker. I will just to teach this to the dog, and then we put it on cue, and then the owner can just use a verbal cue. But a lot of times, like if I only have, um, like say I'm in a class and I can't spend a whole hour with one dog, I've got to speed up the process. I have found that the dogs run quicker with the clicker. So I love it as well. And especially even with my own dogs, if I get my clicker out, my dogs are all lined up like, oh, she's got it. If that thing goes off, we get a treat. So it just helps them to pay attention more. I don't know if you guys probably can't hear, but this one is snoring. Like she's literally snoring right now. That's Daphne. I have two others in the crate that are asleep. The crate door's open. They just go in there and go to sleep. So they have they have a big event every year called the Clicker Expo, and it's like a great big convention. Um, from Karen Pryor is the one that wrote "Don't Shoot the Dog," and she puts on Clicker Expo every year, and it's on my bucket list to go to one. I've never been, um, and but I really want to go because it's just like a 3 or 4 day conference, and I'm sure there's all sorts of stuff to learn about the clicker. But they also use markers when they work with marine animals. So like, whales, dolphins, sea lions, when they teach them tricks and all that stuff that you witness when you go to SeaWorld or things like that, they use a marker to teach them that that's what we want. And then their reward is usually fish. So they mark the behavior. They usually use a whistle. So they use a whistle, and then if you've noticed, like the dolphins then come to the side and they get a fish. So that's kind of where the marking started. Julie, hello. Okay, let me write Julie down. Okay, Mallory. Also, Mallory, if you want to tell me where you're from, I will enter you in the drawing. Um, okay, my dog bit my daughter after being in the trash. How do I stop this? I know offering a higher treat, but how do you stop it when you can't get to a trade? Okay. So the first thing we always want to do is environmental management. Um, One thing I would ask is how old is your anything like that? So depending on your daughter's age, you could teach um, that concept. Like, okay, if the dog gets in the trash, has anything in its mouth, come and get me, or but don't approach the dog, don't try to take it, anything like that. Um, the other thing I would do is make it so that your dog can't get to the trash. So I have the same issue, but for a different reason. My 11-year-old is on prednisone, so she's always hungry. How much I feed her, um, but she's always hungry, and so would get in the trash. Like I would come home and she would have the trash, or I'd come down in the middle of the night and there's like garbage all over the kitchen, and she's gotten in the trash. So what I did is I first of all I got a trash can that has the lid that closes, but it's one of those that the dog can't open very easily. So heavier duty one, and I put a baby gate up to the kitchen so that she can't even go in the kitchen unless I'm in there. And if I'm in there, she won't go near the garbage, or if she does, she knows a good leave it. So I prevent the dogs from even being able to go into the garbage. And another reason for that is I have 4 dogs, and so I don't want them ever resource guarding or fighting over something that may come out of the garbage. So I just manage it so that they can't ever practice that behavior. I close the door to the bathroom so they can't get in that garbage. And I have a baby gate to the kitchen, so when I can't supervise, they can't even get to the garbage. So that's the first thing. The first 2 things I would do is manage your environment so your dog can't practice that behavior, and then um, teach your daughter like how to act around dogs that have something in their mouth. And then when I teach trays, what I do, I start with a really low value item. So I might start with um, a dog biscuit. And I kind of do this with Leave It too. So I kind of incorporate them. So I'll start with a dog biscuit and say Leave It, and then give the dog a piece of cheese. So um, pretty much anything is going to be higher value than a biscuit. Um, and then I'll start with, and then I work up. So then I might ask the dog to leave cheese, but then they get hot dog. And then I ask them to leave chicken, but then they get bacon or something like that. So it's always a lot higher. But I start out with something low value. So I wouldn't start with like um, a rib bone or something really, really high value because they haven't learned the value of trading yet. So I go kind of go through this process. And then I do the same thing with trades. I actually start with like a rope toy and get the dog engaged in just playing tug or playing with a toy. And then I offer a treat. And most dogs will drop a toy for a treat. Um, and then I give them the treat, and then I give the toy back. So this is in the early stages. So in the dog's mind, it's like if I give this up, I get something better, and then I get the original item back. So it's a win-win. So it's kind of like you guys that go to my lives a lot have probably heard this analogy before, but if you lend your car to somebody, back all full of gas and totally detailed, then you're like, oh, it comes back better. So it's the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, I'll give this up because I get this and then I get this. So it works out better. Do you guys hear her? She's like growling. She must be dreaming. She's like snoring and growling in her sleep. Um, so so that's how I teach it is you give this up, you get this, and then you get this back. But then sometimes I don't give it back. If it's something the dog shouldn't have, like a sock or something, then I don't give it back. But they get it back enough in the beginning that they're fine giving it up. Um, and again, I start with like a rope toy, and then I might have them pick up a stick or like just something that they would normally want to put in their mouth, um, to where any kind of treat is going to be better than what they have. And then I work up to something that they might have, that they might get in the garbage. And then make sure that you have a really good treat. The other thing to keep in mind is the dog gets to decide what a good reinforcer is. So when you say you're offering a higher treat, if your dog isn't wanting to give up what's in their mouth, then what you're offering isn't higher value to the dog. So you may have to play around with different things, which is why for harder leave-its and recall, I use bacon because I don't eat meat, so my dogs never get that kind of stuff unless it's like bacon flavored treats or something. But actual bacon, they never get. So whenever I go out to eat, I always get a side of bacon in a box, and we train with that. So to my dogs, that's really, really good. Now, I had a puppy once in puppy class who didn't like all my really good treats, like my Pupford salmon and rabbit, and this dog loved milk bones. So we had to actually switch to where we were asking the dog to leave a salmon treat and she got a milk bone because to her, the milk bone was like the best thing ever. And the other treats were like, I don't really care. So, so it could be that your dog, what you think is a higher treat, isn't high to the dog. So we do sometimes what we call a preference test, which just means like I'll put a pile of like say beef jerky and hot dogs and cheese and different things and see what the dog goes to first and see what they really really like. So I would go back to teaching trades, but do it in a way that give them something like a rope toy, put a treat right in front of their nose and say drop it, and as soon as they drop, I click, give them the treat, and then I give them the rope toy back and say, okay, take, you can have it back. And then trade back and forth so the dog knows that they don't really have to give it up. They're getting a treat and then they give it back. And then sometimes I'll just take it and say, okay, all gone. But if a dog feels like they're going to really lose a resource, then sometimes yes, they can resource guard. Um, so we kind of want to like work up to that. And then again, teaching kids like not to go, um, near dogs, and you want to build up that predictability of if I give this up, I'm going to get something better. And then sometimes I get it back, and sometimes I don't. But even if I don't, I'm going to get something better. Okay. Um, Nicole, great question. Can you help give tips on using a long line without getting all tangled? Yes. Give me 1 second and I'll be right back. I have to get some drops through my throat. So yes, using a long line can be difficult sometimes in keeping it. And are you talking about getting it tangled with the dog or with like trees and shrubs and stuff? Sometimes using a long line takes practice, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll gather up the long line and just give the dog a certain amount of it, and then I can let it out as I need to, but I can also gather it up as I need to. Um, so I do long line work like when we go hiking and I'm doing recalls. I will use a long line, and sometimes it is a pain because there's lots of sagebrush and trees and stumps and rocks, and it seems like I'm like trying to untangle. So instead of just letting them drag, I'll use a 30 foot, but I may only give them, depending on where we are, I may only give them 10 feet of it or 15 feet of it. And then if we get to a more open area, I'll release more and give them more. And then if we get to a place that's more dense, I might gather some in. Um, and the trick to having it like not get tangled with the dog, if you're doing long line work for like recall, um, that's mainly what I use long line for. Um, I will a lot of times clip it. So I use freedom harness with my dogs, and instead of using the front clip, which I usually always use for leash pulling, if I'm doing long line work, I put it on the back because then it's less likely for it to get tangled up with the dog because it's on the back. They still can get tangled, um, and sometimes I'll just even give them more and so that it's down on the ground and just kind of try to move it so that they step over it. A lot of times you can get them untangled that way. But yeah, I would just say it takes practice. I mean, if you've looked at some of the courses I've done for Pupford, I think the recall and maybe even the leash walking, like you'll even see me getting the leash out from between my dog's legs. So it's just something that happens, and it just takes practice. I'm not perfect at it, so I would just say, yeah, keep practicing, and just know that you can gather it up if you need to, and then let it out as you need to. Um, okay, Willow, should I try using her food for training if she doesn't want to eat her breakfast that day? Absolutely, yes. So that's what I do with a lot of puppy board and trains. If they don't eat their food, I pick it up after 15 minutes. But then during the day when we do training, instead of using treats, I will let them work for pieces of kibble. And so they can earn pieces of food throughout the day for training, and then they get a regular meal. Usually, so I'm really big on ditching the bowl and having your dog do some enrichment for food. So, an example, and again, you guys that have been with me a lot have already heard this, but my dog Jade is a resource guarder. And she eats her food so fast that she'll eat her food and then try to eat her sister's food. So, and Daphne, this little one that's like snoring over here, she's so gentle that if Jade comes up to her food, she'll just back away and just be like, okay, you can have it. So I kind of have to advocate for Daphne, like, okay, you need to eat. You can't give your food to your sister. So I actually feed Jade behind the baby gate in the kitchen, and I feed her in a snuffle mat. And the reason I do that is because it slows her down. She has to actually forage for her food, and instead of taking like 15 seconds to eat, it takes her 9 minutes. So now she's the last one to get fed, and she's always the first one done. Now she's the last one because she is like working that mat, and even after she's gotten it all, she still can smell it, and she's still searching. So there's like so many pluses. It slows her down. She's using her nose. We're doing a meal and enrichment all at the same time. Um, so that's kind of what I do with the puppy. So yeah, if a dog doesn't eat, I might take it up or pick it up, and then they can earn pieces of kibble throughout the day. And then when it comes to dinner time, I might give them another chance to eat, but I might give it to them in a snuffle mat or a treat dispensing toy or something that they've got to roll around and work at and figure out how to get the food out, because then that becomes an enrichment, it becomes a game, engages their brain, um, and it's really good for them. So you could try that. But yes, to answer your question, you can absolutely use their food for training if they don't use it. Sally, it's been very cold recently, -6 and -9. Yeah, I we do get below 0. I'm sure Brian gets colder than we do, but we've had -17 before. I think it's the coldest it's gotten up here. So, and then during the winter, yeah, a lot of times it's -8, -9. I used to go hiking in the morning with a friend, and it would be like -11, and we would still go. But once you get hiking and get walking, we would warm up really quick. So, um, Nicole, my 15-year-old pup has started thinking 3 a.m. is 4 a.m. and barking for me to feed him. Yeah, so do you usually feed at 4 a.m.? I am not even awake at 4 a.m. Well, take that back. I usually am because I don't sleep well. But I'm awake, but I'm not getting up. So my dogs usually wake me up about 7:30. That's when they know that it's breakfast time. So yeah, there's no way I would get up at um, 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. to feed. Although I had a German Shepherd once that had some medical issues, and I don't know that we ever really figured out what was wrong with him. But he lost a bunch of weight, and he was always hungry. And every 2 hours, he would come and like whine at me to feed him, and he would wake me up at like 3 or 4 in the morning because he was so hungry. Um, I ended up going to a holistic vet, and she was actually out of the country, but she emailed me and said, I want you to put this, and this in your dog's food. And it worked. Like he gained weight, and then he was never had any issues after that and lived to be like 12. So I that's why I say she was out of the country, so we didn't do any tests. I still don't know why he was losing weight or what was wrong with him, but the stuff that she had me add worked. So yeah, that's the only time that I actually did get up at 4 a.m. to feed him because I felt bad for him. Um, okay, Emily Novak, hello and welcome from Boston. Let me just write you down so I can put you in the drawing. Um, yeah, so just so you know, every week we're going to rotate days and times and sometimes do them earlier and sometimes do them later just so we can get more people that can participate. And I love that we're getting new people that haven't been on here before, so that's awesome. Okay, um, Allie, my pup is picky. She has been a roller coaster. Real chicken and cheese is the most consistent goal. Yeah. Um, and with chicken, you can also, I learned this at a conference once. They do boiled chicken, and then they cut it up into little pieces, boil it, and then they will put a certain, I think it's like olive oil or something, but they put it on a like a cookie sheet and then put it in the oven and bake it a little bit. Just and what that does is it makes it not as greasy, and then like if you toss it, it's not gonna slide around and stuff like that. So I don't go that far. I will boil chicken and then just get it into little pieces, but then I don't like put it in the oven. But yeah, I have a really good friend who's got two of the pickiest dogs I've ever met. And they took my reactive dog class, and they wouldn't even work for chicken. Like they were so distracted in class that they had to literally make steak. They had to cook steak and cut it up into pieces for class. That's how picky these dogs were. So Yeah, if you found that chicken and cheese are your gold, then I would use that for sure. Sometimes I'll get that string cheese and I'll keep a few of those in my treat pouch, just in case I have a dog that doesn't like treats, like the treats that I have, which is rare, but it does happen. And so then I'll try cheese. And then sometimes I have to use spray cheese or even peanut butter. So yeah, some dogs are just picky. Julie, with the word here, Dakota will think there's a visitor. When there is no one there, she will constantly bark. Um, yeah, so my here means, so if I'm out hiking or for recall, if I say come means come and sit in front of me. And here means just come back to my general area, but you don't have to come right to me. Um, but yeah, you can't. But if Dakota knows that here um, means a visitor's here, then you could teach her that here means go to your mat and be calm. And so then if there is somebody there, it's like, oh, who's here? Then Dakota knows, oh, somebody's here. I go to my mat, and then when they come in, I get to say hi. If there's no one there and Dakota hears the word here, um, and she starts barking, then you can always use like a all done cue. So, like sometimes my dogs will go bark at the front door, or they don't really bark a lot, but they'll go to the front door, and I don't have a doorbell. They let me know when somebody's here. But I'll go look out front, and then I'll just say, guys, there's no one here. And then they stop. So I go check it out, and then I usually say, there's nobody here. And even if they hear the word here, like there's nobody here, they haven't associated that word. So you might have to come up with a different phrase, meaning like, there's nobody. And then that means like all done. So you don't need to bark anymore. And then, have your dog do something else, like hand target or go lay on your bed or, um, use the word enough and have that be like an interrupter or like a quiet cue. You could try that as well. With the same people that I was trying to get them to do the marker right, they had a dog that just constantly barked. And so I started ignoring the dog, um, and only gave it attention and treats when he was quiet. Because um, they actually called me because he was barking all the time. And so as soon as I'd come in, he was barking. So I was, and he's very cheap behind him to get him to like move away, come forward, move away, come forward. But then, and he got to the point where he would come take treats out of my hand, and then he'd just start barking. So then I thought, well, so now he's barking, so that I'll ask him to do something else to give him a treat. So I started doing like, okay, enough. And then he wouldn't get a treat until he was quiet. And then he had to be quiet for longer and longer before he would get the treat. So you could do something like that. Um, and Willow, I mean, she has great suggestions. Try and redirect the barking to something different, like trying to get their attention on you putting them in a sit. Perfect. Yeah. If I'm in class, so in fact, last night I had a dog that was barking its head off at another dog. I have a Great Dane in one of my classes that looks like a small horse, and this dog was just barking like crazy. And we were trying to get the dog to do like a come front or a sit front, would sit and look at me and get rewarded instead of looking at the dog. So trying to do something different like that, and that works great. Oh, Lexi, you're from Rhode Island. Um, what part? Because I have friends in Providence. And if you've ever heard of Handsome Dan's Rescue in Rhode Island, that's one of my really good friends. Um, in fact, I'm supposed to go visit her this spring. Okay, let me write you down. We're trying to come up with a time that I can come and visit, but I want to go when we can go to the beach. So, because we don't have beaches in Utah. So I want to go when we can go to the beach. Um, and she wants me to come now and then I guess go to Florida. So I don't know. We're still talking about it. Okay, Mallory, where's Jasper? I've never heard of. Is Jasper a city? And if so, like what state? Because I honestly have never heard of Jasper. Okay, Julie. Um, it's like if I ask my kid to come into a room, I will usually say, "Can you come here, please?" Then she starts to go to the window and bark. Or if I show one of them something, I say it's right here, then the cycle starts again. Yes. Um, and yeah, dogs can definitely pick up on that. They pick up on cues and they can pick up on verbal cues as well as other cues. So in the morning, I usually, as I'm putting on what little makeup I wear, I'm usually like trying to check emails in the morning just to make sure like nobody's canceled or something like that. And as soon as I put the lid down, Jade is up because she's like, oh, I'm getting ready to go. That's a cue for her. Like, mom's getting ready to go. And she wants to go with. And she does go with me a lot, but not all the time. Um, if I happen to have a day off she jumps up, I'll say, oh, Jade, I'm not going anywhere. And then once she figures out that I'm really not leaving or I sit down and start doing something else, she'll go lay back down. So yeah, sometimes dogs can pick up on different cues, like if you pick up your keys, or like if I close my computer, or when I put on my shoes, because I usually don't wear shoes in my house. So if I start to put my boots on, Jade knows that it's time to go. And it's really interesting because Maddie usually doesn't want to go outside. So when she sees me get my boots on, she'll go to the crate because she wants to stay in the house where it's nice and warm. And Daphne and Willie will go outside because they want to go outside. So yeah, they pick up on environmental cues, and it's so interesting and fun to watch. You know what they learn. Julie, I have to put my trash can up high because Dakota can lift the lid. Yep. And I've done that before too. So before I got this trash can. Oh, and Karen put a link to one. I bet that's what I have because you do have to like step on something and it lifts the lid and then yeah, I bet that's what I have. I didn't my mom bought it for me, so I'm not sure what it's called. But until I got those and before I put my baby gate up, I had to literally put my garbage can up on my stove so that Maddie couldn't get in the trash. So again, environmental management. I just put it out of reach so that she couldn't get to it. And luckily, she can't jump up on the counter. She's big enough, but she's 11, so she can't jump anymore. So, yeah, whatever you have to do to make it so that it's not rewarding and so that the dog can't ever get in the trash and get rewarded for that. Home once and had to have been around, no, it was cantaloupe. So I had some cantaloupe in my fridge that I forgot about and it went moldy, so I had to throw it away. And when I came home, the trash can was tipped over and they had carried half of a cantaloupe, the seeds were all over. There was like a trail of seeds. Luckily, they didn't eat the moldy cantaloupe, but they carried it all the way to the dog. There was like 3 dogs involved. Because I had 3 dogs out at this time, and I don't know which one took the guard or knocked it over, but they had got cantaloupe out. There were seeds everywhere. It was a mess. It was so bad. So that's when I got the baby gate and started putting the trash up. Let's see. Well, I wish it was easy to train people to have them trust you. My dad doesn't trust my dog going around his dachshund when I went with both of them being out at the same time. Um, I agree. I have several clients where husband and wife aren't on the same page, or parents and kids aren't on the same page, and so it's really hard to do management and training when everybody's not on the same page. So a lot of times when I do consults, I will require everybody to be there, um, especially like spouses, kids that are old enough to understand. Like obviously, if a child is 3, I might do a mini training session on like how to be a tree so the dog doesn't nibble on you, and things like that, just so that they're involved. But the more people that you can get on the same page, the better. The other thing is dogs will feed off of each other. So some of the same clients that I've been talking about, they have 2 dogs that bark, and if one starts barking, the other one barks. And the one dog belongs to the husband, the other dog belongs to the wife. I mean, it's kind of like their own dog. Well, the husband doesn't work with the one dog, and so it's really hard for the wife to work with her dog on not barking when this other dog gets to do whatever it wants and starts barking, but then gets this dog barking. So you almost have to work with each dog separately before you put them together. But then again, if everybody's not on the same page, it's really hard. Like it is really hard. Um, so I don't know if this will help Willow, but the first book I ever read on dog training was called "Don't Shoot the Dog" by Karen Pryor, who came up with the clicker and stuff. And I love the preface of her book because it says something like the principles in this book will work on children, spouses, bosses, neighbors, because it's all about like rewarding good behavior. So you could technically, like, if your dad does something that's trusting, um, or does something to help, then reward him for it. Even if it's like, oh, Dad, thank you, that helped so much. I appreciate that so much. And then he might be like, oh, she really appreciates that. Okay, so I'm going to do more of that. Um, so you could try doing stuff like that and kind of shape without letting your dad know that you're training him. Then you could actually maybe shape the behavior that you want by reinforcing him for helping you. Oh, Nicole, both, or I trip on it as well. I've used it on recall work, okay, but want to use it hiking. Yeah. So leashes. That's why I usually will like try to hold them up so that they don't get tangled in my feet, um, or just kind of drop it. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it basically is practice. Um, and yeah, I mean, I have tripped on leashes, and especially if you have a dog that's going like back and forth and leaving, and then it is hard. And then you almost have to concentrate more on the leash and the leash handling than just enjoying the hike. So yes, I get it, and it's basically just practice. There might be some YouTube videos on using a long line and kind of how to manage it. That's one of those things that I don't exactly know how I do it. I probably just have to go outside and do it and see what I do. But maybe that'll be something that Caitlin and I can videotape sometime and post it or something. And yes, I do. I do use long lines when I'm hiking, and sometimes it is a pain because they do get tangled. But for the most part, I'm just used to like reeling them in and then letting it out, reeling them in, stuff like that. Okay. Um, I will. Oh, I was just looking to see how many more questions. How about I do a drawing and then I'll answer the rest of these questions. So I just got to the end. So you're in East Providence, so you have heard of them. Awesome. Yes, I have Handsome Dan shirt. My favorite sweatshirt is Handsome Dan. I have Handsome Dan baseball cap. So yeah, I have all their stuff. Um, so yeah, I will probably be visiting Rhode Island sometime this spring. I'm really excited because I don't ever travel, but I am gonna go see Heather. Okay, so let me go back to where I was so I don't lose my place. Um, so I'm going to do a drawing, and then those of you that if it's late and you need to go, you can, and then I will answer the rest of these questions. So let me just mix these up and pick a name. And tonight's winner is Sally Malloy from Maine. So congratulations, Sally. I'm going to put your name in the chat. And okay, so Sally, what you do is you are going to email hello@pupford.com and let them know what kind of training treats you want. So if you haven't tried them before, now's your chance. If you have, you can pick your favorite, but they have chicken, beef liver, sweet potato, rabbit, and salmon. So just oh, thank you, Renee, and thank you. I know it's late for you guys, so thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad you guys made it. Um, so yeah, just Sally, email hello@pupford.com and let them know what flavor you want, and then they will send you a free bag of training treats. And Brian, come back next week because you never know, you might win next week. That's why we do these once a week. Okay, Lexi. So my 1.5-year-old jumbo Yorkie, there's such a thing as a jumbo Yorkie, had super delayed teeth development, so his teething went on until about 6 months. So the puppy biting, mouthing lasted a bit longer, but he's an ankle biter still, which in that moment, he loses all bite inhibition. He's a lot better now towards me, since I'm always with him, but when my mom is home, he's all over her ankles while she walks. Or just stands there, which it's definitely all an attention-seeking thing. Yes. Um, he gets plenty of exercise and training and plays every day. So one thing I've learned, or I've started doing with dogs that like to nip or ankle bite, especially if it's for attention, is if you can tell that your dog's going to do it, like if your mom walks in and you know your dog's going to go for the ankles, try to redirect your dog before he does it. So I'll give you an example. I have this toy box full of toys, and so in the morning, my foster dog will eat, and then he goes to his toy box. And I have it up on a little like one of those raised dog food stands. Um, and he's handicapped, so he can't quite reach it. So he'll bark. He'll bark at it, and he will not stop barking until I go get it down for him. So now, once he eats and he starts heading over to the box, I go get the box down for him, um, just to do it before he barks. So one thing you could do is, oh, Maddie, I know, I'm almost done. Come here, Jake. Jake, come here. Jake, over here. Come here. Yeah, Maddie wants to come out. Okay, so one thing I do, yeah, I'm trying to juggle like 4 dogs right now. So one thing I do is, or one thing you can do is before your dog goes for the ankles, redirect. And you can even do scatter feeding. Like, let's see, I don't know what your dog's name is. I'll just call him Yorkie for now. But if your mom walks in and your dog starts heading over, you can say, Yorkie, go hunt, and take a handful of treats and scatter them on the ground. And then let your dog like go hunt for treats instead of biting. And so, but we want to try and catch it before your dog does it so that your dog doesn't get rewarded for ankle biting. So if if you can catch your dog before he actually goes for that, um, then you can distract and redirect before it even happens. Um, and if your dog is doing it for attention, one thing that your mom can do is like walk in another room and close the door. So that instead of getting attention for ankle biting, it actually makes your mom go away. And then, oh, it finally woke up. Um, so instead of getting attention, it makes your mom go away, and then the dog gets no attention. And then you want to catch your dog doing good things. So have your mom ready to reward your dog when he's not biting. So if he's doing anything other than biting ankles, like giving her eye contact, you can actually teach him how to hand target with your mom. So doing touch. Let me see if I can get Jackie over here. Yes. So just touch your hand. Um, and because they do it with a closed mouth. So all they have to do is come up and touch their nose to your hand with a closed mouth and get rewarded. So that's incompatible with biting. So if you can teach your dog to do that instead of biting, then your dog can kind of learn to interact with your mom that way instead of biting. Does that make sense? So interrupting before your dog does it, and then teach your dog something else, and teach your dog a different way to interact with your mom. So, your mom might walk around with a pocket full of treats for a while, and when your Yorkie's calm, reward. When the Yorkie gets eye contact, reward. Does hand targeting, reward. Sits, reward. Anything other than ankle biting, your dog is going to get rewarded for that. And then that's the behavior that will continue because um, that's what gets rewarded. Um, and yes, the last part, he'll stop when I say leave it, but as soon as he stops, he goes right back. Um, so what I would do is I would do a leave it, but then ask him to go do something else, such as go to your mat or, station or go do a downstay, and then you can keep treating for continuing to stay in a down. So that will kind of get rid of that. I'm going to get a treat and then I'm going to go back to biting. So it's like, oh, I leave it, then I go lay down. Or you can do leave it and here's a toy instead. Let's have you chew on this toy or play tug or let's play with the flirt pole or let's do something else. Come on, Maddie, let me get up. Let's have you do something else instead of biting ankles. So redirect to a toy or redirect to something else. Maddie just came to say hi. This is Maddie. She's my garbage eater. She's on prednisone, so she's always hungry, huh? She's always hungry. Um, okay, Ryan. Oh, Nicole, you go to work at 5:30. Oh, I couldn't do it. I'm not a morning person though. Come on, Maddie. Come on. Okay, Brian, I have an Australian cattle dog German Shepherd. Is really bad about jumping on people. We have tried sit, and that hasn't helped because not everyone is consistent. Yeah, so let me tell you about my dog Jade. She's a jumper, and the reason is she's a cute little pocket pitty. She's like a 35-pound pit bull mix, and she jumps because not everyone is consistent. And she's learned that some people will say hi and give her attention. Maddie, come on, stop. She learns that some people will give her attention when she jumps, and I have to step in and say, I'll tell her off. So I'll teach her an off, and then I'll tell people, okay, now you can say hi when she's not jumping on you. But if people come up and say, oh, can I pet her? She's so cute. I say, yep, as long as she's sitting or has 4 on the floor. But if she starts to jump, I want you to turn your back. And sometimes if you explain to people, well, my dog's in training, so if you could do this, then that will help with training. So I use Jade a lot with training clients. So when I always tell people, like, she's very social and she might try to jump. So if she tries to jump on you, please turn your back and ignore her. And I had one guy that says, oh, I don't mind. I don't care if dogs jump on me. And I say, oh, well, but I mind and I don't want her to. So please don't let her. And then as soon as I said, she's in training, I don't want her jumping, then he was totally cool about helping with the training. And so, yes, I do sit. I have taught her an off. So like off and then sit. And sometimes like she'll sit and people are petting. And then if she stands up and gets ready to jump, I have them turn their back. So a lot of times it just is all about like being consistent and teaching dogs what you want them to do instead of jumping. I worked with a German Shepherd last Saturday. Oh my gosh, chronic jumper. The whole time we were, if I was talking to the owner and we were actively training with the dog was trying to jump. So, like really bad. Come on, now you get up. Oh, that's a good girl. She's got bad back, bad hips. Like she's old, so it's hard for her to get up on the couch. So with that dog, it was constant turning my back, asking for a sit. Sometimes, if I really needed to talk to the owner, I would throw treats down on the ground and say, "Go hunt," and give the dog something else to do. Um, and and at times, I have also, if a dog is on leash and is like an attention seeking, like jumping for attention. Sometimes I will just like step on the leash, like not tight, so it's not choking. It's just kind of letting the dog know, okay, I need to have a conversation with somebody that's not about you. And this isn't considered aversive. I learned this in a conference by 2 very well-known positive trainers. But it's called putting the dog in park so that you can have a conversation with somebody and the dog learns to chill. So you could try that too. But yeah, I would just keep doing that and keep repeating the sit and the like 4 on the floor type thing. And then asking people like just say my dog's in training, please turn your back. Or if they don't, then you can teach an off. So then you can say to your dog, hey, off, sit. Okay, now you can say hi. So sometimes it's harder to teach the people than the dogs, honestly. Willow, I feed my dogs at 6. Yeah. There are occasions when I do have to get up at 6. And so very, but yeah, I do sometimes. But usually it's around 7:30. Um, okay, Willow, when I use the here command for my dog, I try to use it for her to look at me and give me her undivided attention instead of constantly saying, look at me. Yeah, that's totally right. The nice thing about training is you get to pick what words you use. So where I might use like watch me or look at that, somebody else could use, like I have clients that use eyes. They'll say eyes, and that means to like look at me. Um, I have clients that use target instead of touch, and it's totally fine. Like whatever you want to name it, as long as you're consistent and your family, whoever like interacting with your dog is consistent, that's totally good. But I like that. That's good to use here, like right here, and give you undivided attention. Oh, Brian, we have our kitchen garbage under the sink and put Velcro on the door. That's a great idea too. Yeah. Anything that you can do so that the dog can't get in the garbage will work. Brian's won like 2 times in 1 month. So yeah, sorry, Brian. We'll have Jade do it next. Jade seems to like love Brian because she's picked his name out of the dog bowl twice. So yeah, sorry. Karen. Okay, yep, I can hear my bed calling my name. Yeah, thank for you guys on the East Coast that are headed off to bed. Thank you so much for coming, and love seeing return people every week. So yeah, we'll see you next week. Um, and I haven't decided what day or time we're going to do it next week. I have to look at my schedule. But since we did late this week, we'll probably do an earlier one next week. So we'll just keep rotating. Um, oh, the big one. This is Maddie. So she looks ferocious and she does have a really deep bark. And she's got the cropped ears and stuff, so she does look kind of scary. But she, like when I had a mouse, she ran to the crate and hid. Like she would not hurt a fly. So that's Maddie. And then the little brown one that I had that was snoring, that's Daphne. And then I have Jade that you guys have seen before. She's in the crate of sleep right now. Um, oh, yeah, see, Julie knows my dog. That's Julie. Yeah, little brown one's Daphne. And then Maddie. Yeah, she's cute. She's so sweet. So Maddie actually came with that name, and I liked it, so I kept it. And then at that time that I got Dash, the shelter had named her, um, oh, what was it? Lagatha. And it's something from Game of Thrones, but I'm like, there is no way I am naming my dog Lagatha. So sometimes I change their names and sometimes I don't. But at the time, I was watching Nashville, the series Nashville. And there are some sisters that are sisters in real life, but they were also sisters on the show. And on the show, their names were Maddie and Daphne. So since I already had a Maddie, and that was my favorite show at the time, I named Daphne. So that's how Daphne got her name. Um, Brian, do you feel that dog training is also human training? Oh, absolutely. In fact, I cannot count how many times I go in and people, after like 10 minutes, they're like, "You're really training us, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yes." For the most part, and this is why I prefer not to do board and train. Because if a dog comes over and stays with me for a week or 2 weeks, I can train the dog and I can get it to listen to me. But then as soon as the dog goes home, if the human doesn't know what to do to keep up with what I've done, the dog's going to forget or not do it. Um, and dogs don't generalize, and especially puppies, their brain is still developing. So just because a dog, if you've ever gone to a dog training class and you know that you work on, sit down, stay at home, and then you go to class and there's other people, other dogs, and all of a sudden, your dog's brain has gone out the window. And it's like, you're like, my dog does this at home, but my dog won't do it here. Yeah, because there's more distractions, and sometimes, dogs don't generalize. So when I do board and train, I always have the people stay. When they pick their dog up, they have to stay for an hour to 90 minutes, so that I can show them what I did, so that they can keep up on it. So sometimes I do the stuff that the owners don't want to do, like crate train, potty train, teach the basics. But you are absolutely right. I actually train the human to train the dog. Um, and it's really interesting that when COVID hit and we started doing virtual, um, it actually made the people better trainers because I wasn't there to actually take the dog and do, whatever it was that we were doing. So when I tell people like we could do virtual, they're like, "Oh, no, 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 no! I want you in. I have to have you come to the house. I want you to see what my dog does." And it's like, well, I can see it from here. Um, and if I talk somebody through it, it actually makes them a better trainer. Because I've been doing this for so long, like, I can take a dog and teach it whatever I need it to know. Some dogs learn quicker than others, and there's like a lot of things that go into it. But um, I'm also one of those people that learns by doing and not watching. So I actually have to do it. So yes, you hit the nail on the head. I am actually teaching the humans how to train the dog. Because ultimately they're going to be the ones with their dog, and they're going to be the ones like keeping up with the training and things like that. So that's kind of how I got into training. Um, so Lexi, I how I got to know Heather was she adopted Handsome Dan from the Michael Vick dog fighting bus, and I adopted Hallie from the same bus. And so we got to know each other that way. And so when I got Hallie, I had to work with a trainer as part of the court order. We had to work with positive reinforcement trainer. And so she basically was teaching me how to work with my dog. Because we would meet like twice a month, but I would work with her every day. So that's how I got into training. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this, and this is so much fun. And then I would have neighbors say like, hey, can you help me with my dog? And it just kind of evolved from there. So yeah, sorry, that was a long-winded answer for you, Brian, but yes, you're absolutely right. Um, Ellie's name was Heidi, and Dakota's name was Rosie. Yeah, I had my German Shepherd's name was Flint. and I changed it to Dakota. But I actually spelled it different. I spelled it Koda, just because I have to be different. So that looks like we got through everybody's questions. I'm excited. Um, so thank you guys for joining. You first timers, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll come back next week. I will, once I look at my schedule, I will post what day and time. It'll probably be a Wednesday or Thursday because all my other days are packed. Um, but and I try not to do weekends just because people are busy. But I will post when our next one will be, and hopefully y'all can make it. And thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next week.